Welcome to the Apartment Guys, where we dive deep into all things multifamily investing. Our mission is to educate, inspire, and empower real estate investors to reach their highest potential. Each week, host Tate Seamer interviews high-level guests from all over the industry who are sure to bring valuable, actionable ideas that will propel your career to the next level. Whether you're just starting out or a seasoned investor, you are in the right place. And now your host, the Apartment Guy, Tate Seamer.
Welcome everybody back to another episode of the Apartment Guys podcast. It's the Apartment Guys again today. I'm hanging out with my friend Dave Dubeau, and we are talking about raising capital and how to deal with like rejection, which whether you're raising capital or asking someone out on a date or trying to get an offer accepted or get a job or get a raise or whatever, we all have to deal with rejection, and we all have to produce in spite of rejection. So this is going to be really valuable today, I'm sure. Really looking forward to this. Dave is an entrepreneur and is a real estate entrepreneur, best-selling author, speaker, and investor. Began his real estate investing career in 2003, did 18 deals in 18 months. That's an awesome start. Later switched to focus to client first rent to own deals. And nowadays invests in multifamily, apartment buildings. And for the last several years, Dave has been a leading authority on helping real estate investors to find money partners and raise capital. Using his proprietary five-step money partner formula, Dave helps his real estate entrepreneur clients to grow their portfolios significantly and in record time by attracting investors instead of chasing after them. So this is amazing for me. Dave, I'll hand it off to you in just a second. I just want to contextualize this by saying I'm super stoked for this because we are, as many listeners know, as we speak here at the end of May in 2021, we've got 4 different communities in the works, different deals we're working on. And so we are talking capital raising all day, every day. We're talking about our opportunities that we have available with different capital sources. So this is super prescient to get to talk to you, Dave, today about this. But before we jump in, if you don't mind, kind of give us a little bit of color behind Dave, where you're from and kind of who's made, who and what's made you who you are, and give us a little look behind the curtain.
Thanks a lot, Tate. I appreciate that. So it's a pleasure to be here. And a little bit about myself. Well, if you hear me talk for a while, you might hear an out and about. So you might hear an accent. I'm up here in Canada. Mm-hmm. So I'm originally from a small town in northern British Columbia. Graduated from university way the heck back in 1990. Didn't have anybody throwing jobs offers at me, so I decided to go travel the world a bit. So I went and hung out and lived and traveled around Mexico and Central America for a couple of years. And, at about, I think I was 23 or 24 years old, I came to this country, a little small country called Costa Rica. Fell in love with the place, fell in love with the people, fell in love with a person, and decided to kind of plant my flag. And I thought, what the heck? Why don't I start a business here? And this is how clueless I was, Tate. There I was 23 or 24, whatever it was. I had about $1,000 left to my name. I had zero business experience, zero marketing experience, zero clue. And I was basically a pasty-faced North American wetback in Latin America. Talk about poetic justice, right? I was an illegal alien in this country, but by hook and by crook, I made a go of it and eventually started a language training company, got married, had kids, got legalized, the whole bit down there. And that was my first kick of the can at being an entrepreneur. So I did that for 10 years and developed a pretty robust little business down there. And had a good lifestyle because down in Latin America, you don't need a heck of a lot of money where you can have maids and gardeners and all this kind of stuff that's a little more difficult back in North America. But in 2003, my wife and I took a look at things and said, you know what? This is great, but we thought it would be better to have our kids grow up in North America, because as good as Costa Rica is, being the pasty-faced white guy that I am, whether you have a lot of money or not, people think you do. So there's a bit of a target on your back, and nasty things like getting kidnapped and held for ransom and things like that do happen from time to time down there. Knock on wood, never happened to me, but it did happen to a couple of people I knew. So we decided to pack everything up, move back to Canada, and start all over again from scratch. So that's what we did. We moved to a brand new city. I didn't have any contacts. I'd been out of the country so long. I didn't have bad credit. I had zero credit.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
And I've been self-employed for quite a while, so I was pretty much unemployable. So there I was. I hadn't been able to sell my business in Costa Rica, so we didn't really have much money either. And I found myself going, okay, here we are living in a crappy little rental property on the wrong side of the tracks. My persnickety Costa Rican wife was not used to that lifestyle.
Right.
Not my ex-wife, but that's a different story. So there was a lot of pressure on, what the hell am I going to do? And Tate, you're a young fellow, so I don't think you probably recall these things, but back in the day, there used to be these things called infomercials. Mm-hmm. And you too can get rich in real estate with little or no money down.
Yep.
And I saw one of those and I said, perfect, that's what I got. Little or no money. Let's see if this thing could work. So I sent away for this home study course, and there's a bunch of binders and CDs, maybe even a VHS cassette or two. And I plowed through this, and that's when I did my 18 deals in 18 months, which sounds impressive, but they're not the kind of deals you're doing, Tate. They, some of them were kind of cool. Others are crappy little mobile homes that, made $3,000, $5,000 here, whatever it was.
Yeah, but they're deals, and you're learning. Every time you do a real estate deal, you learn and you graduate to the next level. So I don't discredit any of that. So was that the Carlton Sheets course that you got?
Actually, it was Ron LeGrand.
Okay.
Pretty close. Yeah. I think Ron learned a bunch of stuff from Carlton, but anyway, same gist.
Yeah.
So that's what I did for a while. And I caught the eye because by that time I had some experience with real estate. Plus with my own business in Costa Rica, I really developed a passion for marketing. I'd become fairly good at that. And I caught the eye of an up-and-coming real estate guru up here, a guy that was an educator and a kind of a syndicator, kind of a Canadian version of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, so to speak.
Yeah. And
jumped on board with him and became the director of marketing for him and his companies, helped him grow his business from him and one or two employees working out of their basement to when we parted ways, he was at 128 employees, 7 branch offices, about $200 million a year in revenues, really, really rocking and rolling. So that was a fun ride. Took some time off of active real estate investing while I was doing that. Jumped back in 2010, I guess, doing a different strategy, client first, rent own type deals. And this was a little bit different because the original creative thing was low money, no money down. I didn't really need any capital for those kind of deals. But this new strategy, I did. I needed down payment money for houses. And the property prices in the area around that were in the $300,000 to $400,000 range. So we're looking at $75,000 to $100,000 down for these kind of investment properties. Mm-hmm. And quite quickly, I ran out of cash, as you can imagine, right? Right. Most of us self-finance our first deal or two, and that's great. And then I hit that wall, right? Ran out of cash, ran out of credit. And I'd heard this saying, if you've got a good deal, the money will find you. Have you ever heard that saying?
I've lived it, honestly, but yes, I've heard it. I've said it. I've preached it. You and I might not see quite eye to eye on this. I was gonna give it a little caveat and say that it's not always the case, but sometimes it's the case, I think.
It can be the case. I guess it wasn't the case for me. And it didn't work out that way, right? So I say, yes, it is the case if you've got a group of people already kind of lined up waiting to go in the wings.
Sure.
Then yes, that is the case. But in my case, I ran out of cash. And then, of course, that's when this perfect deal lands in my lap. And I needed, I think, about $85,000 to close on this deal. Mm-hmm. So I was thinking, okay, crap. what do I do? Because I can't just wait, the secret thing and wish it to come true kind of thing. You have to do something.
Right.
So I'd heard, you know what? If you want to raise money, pick up the phone and start dialing for dollars, right? So didn't really know anything about doing that, but I thought, hey, that's what the guy in The Wolf of Wall Street does in the movie. And that's, so I did, called, rejected. And Tate, I guess I'm a bit of a delicate flower when it comes to my poor little ego. I couldn't handle that much rejection. I'd love to say I crunched through 1,000 calls. I didn't. I probably crunched through 9 calls. Maybe, right? Just couldn't hack the rejection, and it just felt weird trying to pitch a deal on the phone. So then I also heard, hey, you know what? Go out and turn every conversation into a real estate conversation. So, okay, well, that makes sense. So I went out and I had my business cards and practiced up my elevator pitch, 30-second commercial, whatever you want to call it. Local B&I, Chamber of Commerce, Toastmasters, wherever the hell they'd let me in the door with a group of people. There I went, shaking hands, doing my elevator pitch, grabbing cards, giving cards, raised zero capital.
And at this point, you had this property under contract?
It's under contract. And now I've got to get an extension on subject removals. It's a single family home. It's not a huge, but still, I was under some serious pressure. Yeah. And then I came up with what I thought was a brilliant idea. I said, hey, you know what? This is such a good deal. If enough people just see it, the deal will sell itself. Right. So I put together a little PDF and I emailed that out to a couple hundred people. One smart thing I'd done is I put together a bit of a list of prospective investors. So I emailed this out to all a couple hundred of those people. And that was the first thing that showed any signs of life, Tate. Like I started getting some responses back. So I'm excited. I'm going, yes, finally. Until I started reading those responses. And here's how the gist of it was most of them would say, hey, Dave, dude, haven't heard from you in 5 years. Right. Or 8 years. One guy hadn't heard from me in 18 years, Tate. And here you are, hit me up for cash for a deal. Take a hike. Or some version there. Yeah. So the end of this sad story is that I had to back out of that deal. I could not close on time. I had to, and I live in a fairly small town, like it was about 80,000 people in my city. So ticked off the property seller big time, ticked off the realtor, obviously ticked off my tenant buyer, ticked off the mortgage guy. I mean, major egg on my face. And not only that, but I turned off so many people by being so needy, creepy, and desperate about chasing after the money that, when the dust settled and I'd had my couple of wobbly pops to commiserate, that things hadn't gone well, I said, what the hell are you doing, Dave? Right? This is just dumb. And I gave my head a shake and I said, if there's one thing you know a little bit about, it's marketing. Why don't you figure out how to apply some smart marketing and get those investors lined up, ready to go in the wings first, and then go find the deal? So, so that's been my philosophy ever since, Tate, is when it comes to the money and the deal, which comes first, I suggest the money should come first. That doesn't mean having millions sitting in the bank. That means having those investor partners lined up, already, ready to go when you've got a deal. So that's been the whole reason for my being for the last number of years. I cracked the code for myself, charged out, did a whole bunch more rent-own deals with investor partners following the process, graduated up into multifamily properties, raised several millions of dollars following the process as well. These days, I'm more of a passive investor because I realize there's smart guys like you that are way better at, dealing with tenants and toilets and all of the property and tenant management stuff. So these days, I'm kind of more of a passive investor. And I work a lot with what I call mom and pop real estate entrepreneurs who are just getting started with the whole process of raising capital so they can avoid making some of the dumbass mistakes I made getting started. Does that make sense? That was probably a way longer answer than you.
Oh, man, dude, that was awesome. I can't wait to listen to that again. That was all good stuff. I was laughing the whole time. So much there too. So at this point, like, what's your passion now? Like, what's really lighting you up these days about what you're doing?
You know what? I'm a real estate guy, and I'm a marketer at heart. Marketing's what really kind of juices me up. So what lights me up these days is helping other people to get started on their path of raising capital, whatever that's for. It can be for single family homes, people doing flips, burrs, multifamily properties. We've got lots of clients doing small multis, people getting into larger multis as well. So our sweet spot is helping people kind of get the ball rolling with raising capital, really get their first $500,000, $1 million, maybe even up to $2 million of capital raised, by really, really focusing on their sphere of influence, people that they have that pre-existing relationship with, right? Because you got to think, in order for somebody to invest $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 with you, they need to know you, they need to like you, and they need to trust you, right? And you're very aware of this, Tate. Like, getting the ball rolling, that's the biggest thing. Like, once you've got that momentum going, once you've got that first deal going, it's so much easier to raise capital for the other deals. So we help people get started on that path of raising capital.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, cool. So this is probably a good place to just kind of jump into that, and maybe you can just start with talking a little bit about your program.
I'll talk about the process.
Sure.
We don't really explain how the process wants. If people want to find out more, we'll let them know how to do that. But
okay, great.
It's good to get the big picture idea here. So a couple of big principles. Number one, if I had my druthers for people, raise the money first, then go make offers on deals. Your life will be so much less stressful, right? The second big concept is, especially when you're getting started, focus on people that you as potential investors, people that you have that pre-existing relationship with. Because I see so many newbie capital raisers going out there and making a lot of stupid mistakes that could get them into a lot of hot water, right? So they go out on Facebook and say, hey, I got this great deal. Who's interested? Well, and caveat here, Tate, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a security specialist. I'm a real estate guy and a marketer. I'm just sharing my understanding. You folks down in the States, you got the Securities and Exchange Commission. They are there to protect Joe Public against unscrupulous investors. Up here in Canada, we got our version of the same thing. And basically, it says, you and I, as mom and pop real estate entrepreneurs, it's illegal for us to raise capital from the general public unless we're licensed to do so. So think about a stockbroker, a financial planner, mortgage broker. These kind of people are licensed to do so. Or unless we've got an offering memorandum, or we've set up our corporate structure in such a way that we've got certain exemptions, all these kind of things, which tend to be very, very expensive and time consuming if you're just doing small deals. So where does that leave us? Well, in certain cases, you can work with accredited investors, so high net worth, high income individuals. Or there's another exception, typically, which is you can work with close friends, family, and business associates, right? So I'm going to suggest that when it comes to starting to raise capital, let's focus on that last group: close friends, family members, and business associates, people that we have that pre-existing relationship with. Because again, like you said there earlier, Tate, for somebody to invest with you, they need to know you, they need to like you, and they need to trust you with their money.
Yeah.
If we're trying to raise money from the general public, not only is it illegal, it's illogical, right? Joe Schmo, Joe Public doesn't know you, doesn't like you, and sure as heck does not trust you with their $100,000. So that's pushing a really big rock up a steep hill. Yeah. So why don't we go after the low-hanging financial fruit first? And that's people that we already know. So the first step in this whole process is let's create a target group of prospective investors, somewhere between 150 and 200 of them, people who already know us, people who already like us, and now we just have to work on that trust factor. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's create that target group. I can't really get into how to, it's not as tough as you think. You don't have to think up 150, 200 people. Just dump everybody out of your cell phone, your social media, your email contacts. start with a much bigger list and filter it down. That's a way easier way to do it. And then the second part of that is, let's get started on the right foot. Because if you remember my sad story, I spammed everybody I knew with the deal. Everybody told me to bugger off. Not only did I not raise any money from those people, but I turned off a lot of really good prospective investors who I never got back. So, I mean, it's very hard to recuperate from that. So we want to start on the right foot. And here's what I suggest people want to do is reconnect with these folks on a personal level first before you start talking real estate. What does that look like? So when we're doing this with our clients, what we'll do is we put all of those contacts into like an email autoresponder system. And then we'll send out a blast email to all 200, but it comes out very personalized. Each one comes out personalized to that person. And the first message is basically just, hey, it's Dave. Here's what I've been up to for the last 5 years. I just kind of assume people haven't heard from me for a long time. Here's what's going on with my family. Here's the kids' names, the wife's name, what they're up to, what I'm up to, fun stuff, how COVID's impacted things. Really kind of a very personal communication. It's not subliminal. I'm not trying to sneak in real estate stuff there. Yeah. It's just as if I had bumped into an old friend in the lineup at Starbucks and they said, hey, Dave, how you doing? What's new with you? I haven't seen you in a long time. And we had kind of a one-sided conversation. I'd catch them up. And then at the end, here's the key. At the end of the message, say, hey, well, that's what I've been up to. What about you? How are you doing? Please hit reply to this email and let's catch up. I'd love to hear from you. Send that out to a couple hundred people. Don't worry, not everybody's going to reply back. You'll probably get 10, 15 people reply back and then have a little bit of back and forth. That's a genuine reconnection. So that'd be the first message. Second message, similar. I recommend you do a video version of that. And again, the call to action at the end is, hey, love to hear from you. Please hit reply to the email. Let's catch up. And then the third message is really important here, Tate. This is what I call my transition message. And this is where we're going to kind of, the first shot across the bow, we're going to let people know that we're going to switch gears and we're going to start talking business. So it might go something like this. Hey, it's Dave. It's been really good reconnecting with you over the last week or so. I want to let you know that moving ahead, I plan on doing a much better job of staying in touch and letting you know what I'm up to with real estate investing. Real estate is something I'm very passionate about. I've been doing really well with it. And in fact, I think a really good real estate deal is the best way for everyday folks like you and like myself to make an above average return on our money backed by a solid, tangible asset, real property. And who knows, maybe sometime in the future, you might even want to partner with me and share in the profits on a deal. Okay. And then we kind of talk a little bit about that. If you haven't heard back, if you haven't had a chance, please hit reply. I'd love to connect with you. If you'd rather not hear about this, click on the opt out, unsubscribe at the bottom of any of my emails. And that just sets the whole stage for what's going to be coming up next. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's, and that last one's a video.
That would be a video. It's about a minute long. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
And
got
just
it.
giving people a heads up and creating that curiosity. Now, this isn't designed to start booking you meetings, but it actually could very well happen. About half the cases where we're doing this with clients, they'll have people reach out and say, hey, Tate, cool, you're doing this real estate thing. What's that all about? And that way that gets your foot in the door. You can book a one-on-one call, one-on-one meeting, Zoom call, whatever you want to do. And then the next step, so that's step one. Step number two is let's make sure we got a good presentation to show them, keeping in mind that probably the other person is not a real estate weirdo like us. And I say that with love and affection because I'm one too, right? Yes. But you know what I mean. So Tate, you've been immersed in real estate for a long time. Have you ever had a real estate conversation with somebody who's not into real estate?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Have you ever seen probably not with you, but I've seen it happen where their eyes kind of glaze over.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So that's what we always have to keep in mind. We have to realize that the vast majority of the people that we're going to be talking to are not real estate enthusiasts. They're looking for somewhere to put their money and get an above average return on it, but they don't want to know all the nitpicky details. They want to know that you know your stuff and they want to feel comfortable investing with you, but they don't want to get overwhelmed with too much information. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's why it's so important to have a really well thought out, well laid out, well designed presentation. I like slideshow presentations, so like a PowerPoint that just kind of walks everybody through the process at a Reader's Digest level. Mm-hmm. What does that mean? Reader's Digest was a magazine that was written for grown-ups. However, it was written at a 13-year-old reading level. So any 13-year-old could pick up the Reader's Digest, read anything in there, and understand it. Does that make sense? Yeah. So that's the level I suggest you want to take your presentation so that it's easy for the other person to go, yeah, I get it. That makes sense.
Yeah.
You follow me here?
Absolutely.
So that's step number 2. Design a really good investor presentation. Step number 3 is to get things rolling with the marketing. Okay, that's where this really kind of kicks into gear, because my goal is to have prospective investors reaching out to me, requesting an appointment. I want people reaching out to me, clicking on my booking link, and voila, it automatically shows up on my calendar. Hey, I'm talking with Tate about real estate investing Thursday at 3 p.m. Right, so I just show up on Zoom and show my presentation. We're ready to go. And I want these people coming to me pre-educated about what I'm up to, ideally pre-qualified a bit, so they got a gist of what kind of deals I'm doing and what the minimum investment is, pre-motivated and predisposed to investing. Like if we can accomplish all of that, we're 90% there. So that in my mind, that's what really good, effective marketing can do. It can get people coming to you pre-educated, pre-motivated, and predisposed to investing. So there's all sorts of different ways to do that. I suggest you want to have a specific website dedicated to communicating with your prospective investors. So separate from whatever other kind of real estate website you've got, and that you've got a constant, consistent flow of edutaining marketing coming out, ideally at least once a week. And it could be video logs one week, could be a blog post the next week, could be an electronic newsletter the week after that, another blog post after that. So ding, 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 ding. They're constantly getting short, what I call edutaining messages from you. So a little bit educational about what you're up to, hopefully a little bit entertaining so they don't get bored with it, and always with a call to action so people are going to reach out to you and book that call. That's what the whole process is all about.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
That makes sense?
Yeah. That's good stuff.
And then step number 4 of this process is all about, now that we've got, they know us and they like us, now we got to work on that trust factor, right? So we need to be seen as a real estate authority, not in the eyes of the entire world, right? So don't worry about becoming world famous, state famous, or anything like that. All we want to do is we want to become 200 famous. What does that mean? That within that group of about 200 people, our target group of prospective investors, when they think of real estate investing, they think of you. Mm-hmm. That's the important thing. So there's all sorts of different ways to do that. A lot of what we already talked about will help do that. So that constant, consistent communication, the marketing, the website, having sharp-looking materials, have a sharp-looking presentation, dressing the part when you're meeting with somebody, even if it's on Zoom but you're talking with them about investing with you. Put on the blazer, look sharp, have sharp-looking materials. All of these things go a long way to being seen as an authority. Having your own podcast is fantastic. I know we were talking before we started recording that this has been awesome for you. It's been awesome for me as well, my podcast. Mm-hmm. All sorts of different, getting interviewed on other people's podcasts. That's another great way to increase that authority in the eyes of your folks.
Yep. Yeah, the whole thought leadership space is huge when it comes to establishing trust. And
it helps, but it's not necessary. Like not everybody has it in them, Tate. Like
start a
pod, because it's a lot of work, as you know, right?
And
and I find a lot of mom and pop investors, they're working full time. They got a family. The real estate portfolio is not quite at the stage where it'll support them full time. So it's not in everybody's bandwidth to be able to do podcasts, write books, have their own YouTube channels, all that kind of stuff we're told we should do. So start with the easy stuff first. Sharp-looking website, sharp-looking materials, good-looking business cards, dressing up, getting interviewed on podcasts, speaking at your local real estate investment clubs. That's a great thing to do.
Yep.
Even helping out at the club. You don't even need to be a speaker necessarily, but get in front of people.
get on the board of the club. I'm on the executive board of the Utah Real Estate Investor Association. And, it's one piece of the puzzle, right? It's just another with the podcast and the meetup group and, our landing page and my ebook that you can download and whatnot. Like it's just all part of how people can get to know me. And we've established trust through this stuff and had large scale investors come in basically by vetting me largely and my group through the podcast, quite frankly. And I don't have a ton of episodes, but at this point, I think I'm getting close to 50. And, that you spend 40, 50 hours with somebody and listening to them talk about their passion at a high level and have experts on that are educating me, and educating my listeners. Like, that's a great way of establishing a connection, and it's leveraged, right? So while you say it's not for everybody, I'll say this, like, a lot of my listener base is definitely in the larger scale apartment conversation. And when you get into raising capital at those levels, the friends and family and sphere of influence does run out. Sure. It definitely is something that is a finite resource. So if you're going to keep scaling, which you should, in my opinion, you need to have capital raising technology and ability. And, whether or not you've got thought leadership, you certainly need to have a landing page, and that needs to be integrated well with a CRM, and in my opinion, and you need to be producing, like you said, Dave, like making sure that website is sharp and any other marketing materials are sharp. And you know what, like, you can writing one blog post a week, that's not going to take more than a half hour a week, maybe an hour. But you can drop a 4 or 5 paragraph blog post pretty quickly, or a video, like a 5-minute educational video literally takes 5 minutes to record. Now you might do some prep and some, that sort of thing, editing afterwards, but, yep. I'm not trying to minimize the amount of work that this stuff takes, but at the same time, you're talking about raising millions of dollars and having people write 7-figure checks and wire 7-figure wires. And so for me, it's a no-brainer to do all of the things, right?
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely. And I guess what I'm trying to say, Tate, is I think most people anyhow, need to take baby steps before they can jump right in and start running. So again, that's why we really focus on helping folks get started with the whole process. And then, definitely, once they've got that first $1 to $2 million, once they've squeezed all of the juice out of the whole sphere of influence, the friends and family, then definitely now it's time to, if you want to scale, you need to do exactly what you've done. You need to figure out what is the platform going to be to really reach out and start meeting those high net worth accredited type investors. That's the next step.
Yeah. And I'll just say, I'll just remind everybody that if for some reason this sounds daunting, or if what Dave and I are talking about doing feels a little like uncomfortable, or, that's like the edge of growth right there. And just consider that, a small shift in your mindset around what's possible for the kinds of things that you could be able to do in this space could really go like an incredibly long way. And there was a time that the first time I remember I didn't even hear the speech. I just heard the title of the speech at a RIA event. Something like why apartments are easier than flipping single family houses, or something like that. And it planted a seed in my head. And at the time I thought it was just absolutely absurd. And I thought the idea of like us my partner and I getting into apartment buildings was like just completely like something I hadn't even crossed my mind. Like, and so I've been like, my mindset had to grow from not, essentially not believing that I could do what we've done. And even at a 1% or 5% level compared to what we're doing now and the amount of capital that we're raising now. So getting Dave's technology and his systems and his processes for all this is going to give you the confidence and the languaging and the specialized knowledge that you need to do this well. And another ingredient, in my opinion, probably the most important ingredient, is just a belief in what you can do and a belief that you can do this.
Yeah, very well said. Excellent. Exactly, Tate. Yeah, so that's basically the process in a nutshell. And then once you got all that going, as you're very aware, it's so much easier to keep it rolling because you start the snowball effect, right? So you get some really good testimonials, you get really good referrals from some of your existing investors because they tend to know other people with money, and it just kind of, plus you do all the other smart stuff we were talking about there, and it really starts to snowball.
Yeah.
So that's my 5-step money partner formula in a nutshell, my friend.
That is good. That's great stuff. So to the listener that wants to go deep on this with you and wants to really learn from you, I know that there will be some. I think the person that's listening right now, I know who you are, and I know that you need this, and this is for you. So Dave, how would they reach you, and what's the best way to engage with you?
Well, I guess the best way to engage is if I give them a copy of my book in exchange for your name and your email address. That's how you get into my world. So if you want to get a copy of the book and kind of go more in depth, investorattractionbook.com. Tate, I've spared no time or expense putting together the sign for you. So there you go. investorattractionbook.com. That'll get you into my world. Then if you want to join us for a full day workshop where we really kind of dig deep into this, that's great. And at the workshop, if you'd like to have us implement a lot of this stuff for you, that's what my business does. We're a boutique marketing agency, and that's all we do.
That's fantastic. So are you still doing much with active investing these days?
I'm a passive investor these days.
Yep. Perfect.
I realized that I'm not that great at dealing with tenants and toilets. It's not my forte. It's not what I like to do. I like finding deals and the negotiation side of things, but there are other people out there that can do a better job of that as well. So these days I invest my own cash, and every once in a while I'll raise some capital typically for clients that I've gotten to know very, very well.
Yeah, perfect. Well, listen, I think we've talked about this many times before, but being an LP and these in a typical apartment syndication, now they're different, and you got to read the fine print and you got to learn about each deal individually. But generally speaking, the LP position, the limited partner position in an apartment syndication, in my opinion, is like the best position to be in the deal. You get paid the most, you get paid first. And you therefore are the most risk mitigated out of the whole group. And you get tax advantages. It's just, and you don't do anything. Like you LPs are so lazy. You show up with your money.
Yeah.
And no, I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. Cause it's actually our LPs are some of the hardest working people that I know. One of whom I'm thinking of is a farmer and has worked his tail off for 4 generations in his family to put together the nest egg that they have to work with and invest. And so and they're smart because they're working with somebody who specialized that, so they don't need to. They can focus on the farming where they know how to make the money. Yeah, and they can let somebody else put it to use in good real estate deals. So it's a win-win. It really is. Yeah, exactly. So that passive investor option, guys, like, I mean, I think all of us at the end of the day should be aiming for that in my opinion, like either long-term ownership, either active or passive invested in these cash flowing apartment assets, where you've replaced your income needs with passive cash flow, and you're building wealth and generational wealth, and saving a whole bunch of money on taxes in the meantime. So it's really a magical formula.
Sounds smart to me.
Yeah. That's why we do what we do, right, Dave?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, Dave, thank you for being the educator that you are and the inspirer that you are. I really encourage listeners to reach out and investorattractionbook.com. It'll be in the show notes as well. Get in touch with Dave, and if capital, unless you're really great at capital raising and it's coming in and you're meeting all your needs, like, you can probably get something out of working with Dave and really like fine tuning your systems and processes and your skills and your languaging and your approach and everything else, your mindset, all that stuff's going to really pay off in the long run. So, Dave, awesome, dude. Any other last words of wisdom for the listeners before we?
Well, the last word of wisdom is keep listening to this guy and the guests that he brings on his show, because this is a fantastic podcast. So always have that learner's mind. I know I sure as hell don't know everything, far from it. My wife tells me that on a regular basis. So again, it's always about that continual learning and always, sharpening that axe.
Yeah. And getting to learn from each other. And at the same time, like killing two birds with one stone, building relationships while you learn from each other and while you learn together. Like, that's what partnerships are for. That's what mentors are for. That's what digital mentors are for, podcast hosts.
Real estate clubs for too. I mean, that's an awesome place as well. Yeah. If you're not involved in your local RIA, like, I'm on the board of my RIA here in Utah, and it's mostly single family oriented crowd, for the most part. But there's also a lot of interest of people that want to go big and want to scale up. And so I feel like I want to still be a part of that community and contribute how I can to helping people in that journey. So plus it's a great place to meet prospective investors, because you always got people that are active and people that are just kind of sitting on the sidelines wanting to hop in on somebody else's deal.
And there's always deal finders too, and wholesalers, so like really anything that you need in your business should be available in a good RIA, like your partners, your capital, your hard money lenders, like you name it, it should be in your RIA. So anyway, Dave, thanks a ton. I really appreciate it. And listeners, thanks for hanging out with Dave and myself for another episode of The Apartment Guys. We will check you next week. Thanks, everybody.
Take care.
Take care. Thanks, Dave.
Thanks for listening to The Apartment Guys with Tate Seamer. Tate and friends are grateful to have you as a loyal listener. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe, rate, review, and share with friends on your Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, or any other podcast platform. Also, check out Tate's YouTube channel for videos of many of these episodes and more. Until next time, take massive action steps and rock on.